So, hello and welcome. I am Kishal Adron. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the CEO of Eve Rookies, and today we have Mick Fightmaster, who has come to talk about his CSM19 campaign. And in Eve Rookie style, we have some questions about his campaign and also about topics that we're passionate about. So we'll get into it. To start out, Mick, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us when and why you started playing Eve.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. So hello everybody. I'm Mick Fightmaster. I've been playing since 2009. I decided to get into it because I had a friend in college who lived the floor below me, who was playing this really cool looking video game on his laptop. I was like, "Yo, dude, what is that? Like, what are you? what is what is this game? This looks really pretty." And he's like, "Oh, it's this game called Eve." He starts walking me through it. And he's like, "Here, take a referral code." So I grabbed the referral code, and after all that time, and here we are now, however many years later it is. I'm not the best at math. Still playing, and I'm still in touch with the guy who introduced me to the game. He was actually the best man at my wedding, so it was cool to like foster that relationship and grow it to a point where we became really close personal friends, and had an opportunity to expand that relationship through Eve.
Very cool. So you decided to run for CSM this election cycle. Is there any particular reason why?
Yeah, so speaking of personal relationships, I have a good personal relationship with Mark Resurrectus. He and I actually both live in the same state, or we did until he moved to the more Icelandic pastures, if you will. Um, and I always thought that he was a very vocal CSM representative, and he was a resident of Wormhole Space and our representative at the time. And so I took the time when we hung out, at the brewery or whatever, and I said, "Hey, like, what's it like being on CSM?" Because after he got the job offer, he knew that he wasn't going to be able to do CSM again. And I said, what do you think? Like, who would be in your mind, like, who would be a good representative? And he's like, someone who's like really knowledgeable about it and passionate about it. And I was like, okay. And I'm mentally like going through the checklist, like, yeah, okay, I'm passionate, I'm knowledgeable. And so um, he didn't know it at the time, but his gentle nudging and help there kind of pushed me to decide to run for it this year, since he's not eligible, and I wanted to be that sort of approachable, knowledgeable person surrounding wormhole space.
Well, excellent. Why don't you tell us about three of your top campaign points?
Sure. So obviously I'm pretty focused in wormholes. I've got experience elsewhere, but my campaign is really focused on what we can do to make wormholes more accessible, um, and really inspire people to want to come to wormhole space and check it out. Um, I don't have any like, you know, huge ideas that want to completely revamp the uh, yeah, I don't want to completely revamp the landscape of wormhole space. I don't want to like introduce all of these really complicated solutions to these problems. I just want to be there because at the end of the day, CCP are the game designers, right? They're gonna take the game in the direction that they want to take it. I feel like our role in the CSM is to make sure that when they're guiding it in a certain direction, we, the player base, can help tell them like, hey, if you do go down this route, here's some problems that you may experience. Is that something that you understand and want to take as kind of like collateral damage, or could we maybe help refine the problem some more? So really, like, wormhole space is fun. We just want to bring more people in. Um, we want to make sure that it's an enjoyable experience for people, whether they're coming in to like day trip or if they decide they see something really cool and experience and want to kind of set up shop there. And I guess like my one kind of non wormhole related item, if you will, for my campaign point would be like Eve is one of those games where every decision you make, whether it's like fitting your ship, whether it's warping at a certain time or, taking a gate, jumping a wormhole, whatever it is, those decisions are meaningful, right? They're impactful. And so I like the idea of making sure that we have mechanics in the game that have meaningful impact and a balanced consequence as a result, right? So anything that you can do for free, quote unquote, that isn't impactful or isn't meaningful, then not a not a great option in my book.
Okay. So, a little bit earlier before we started officially streaming, I told you a little bit about Eve Rookies and that we're a new player focus group.
Mhm.
So, we have a few questions for you. One of the things that we'd like to know is what do you think is the biggest challenge facing new players in Eve today?
Everyone's seen the graph, right? The learning curve graph, where it's like of MMOs and Eve just sits there as like a cliff that people are just running off of, basically. I think the honestly the biggest challenge is there. Eve's a sandbox game, end of the day, and there's like so much that you can do. I've been playing this game for over a decade now, and there's still stuff that I know I haven't done. And so I think the problem is when you come into the game, you come in alone. Like it's just you and your little AI guy and some NPC commanders that you interact with as you go through the MPE. And then after you complete your first mission, it's like, okay, good luck. And you're like,
Yep.
wait, where did the interaction go? You when you start, you've got like 10 million and one things to digest, and that's a lot to do for a singular person. So I think the biggest challenge is finding your people, like finding a group that you mesh with that really helps navigating those 10 million and one things into a much more like digestible, clumps. Where it's like, okay, now I understand this. Now I understand this, and you can go down the path of understanding rather than just trying to be like, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and all of a sudden you're wondering why your Drake has a mining laser on it, and it's armor tanked. Like, how did this happen?
Yeah, I totally agree that finding your people is probably the number one thing that new players definitely need to do, and CCP needs to get that bridge. Something that
Yeah.
I've been fighting for a while now. What's
For
oh, go ahead?
Oh, I was going to actually ask you a question if that's all
Yeah,
right.
yeah, go ahead.
for the for the amount of time that you've spent focusing on that problem, what sort of results have you seen so far?
Pretty much anyone who comes in. So, Eve Rookies, we started out as a little incursion community, but Eve decided that that wasn't meant to be. So we have now become a community that stands up fleets of everything. We still do incursions. That's our most popular because of the amount of ISK and whatnot. But we literally do everything that you can think of. So everyone that comes in, gets engaged, and comes to a fleet tends to stick around. Everyone that comes in and just wants to find out how to like plex their account or go off and play solo, they're out of here after about 6 months. So
Yeah.
community is so important. So yeah, anyone who gets engaged tends to stick around. That's what we found.
Awesome. All right, cool. Appreciate you taking the time to answer that.
Yeah. So, what suggestions would you give CCP if you became CSM to help improve new player retention?
Oh man. Well, it's actually funny. I was thinking about this the other day. So I've been having like interviews with different groups that live in wormhole space predominantly, and uh, one of the interesting points that I got, I think it was when I spoke with a representative from Dark Venture, they made a comment how the recruitment tool, like the in-corp recruitment or in-game like corporation recruitment ads and like recruitment tools within game are pretty lackluster. They're better than they were, as in the fact that they exist, but it still needs to be iterated on if it's going to be successful. Veterans, they pretty heavily rely on third-party tools. A lot of people will know, like, oh, I'm coming back to the game. Let me go on Eve Jobs, right? The subreddit Eve Jobs, or like let me go on Eve subreddit and see what's going on there, or sometimes even the forums, right? Because people still post on the forums. Um, but for a new player who's not familiar with those tools, they get lost. So I think we
Yeah,
just need to find a way to either bridge that gap or improve the quality of our recruitment tool in game.
I couldn't agree more. You'll be happy to know that I've touched on that many, many times over the past year.
Well,
But
hopefully we'll see some improvement soon because it feels like it hasn't changed much.
I think that we need to keep that conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the very last question in this particular section is, and I know these questions are particularly hard for players that don't really surround themselves around the new bros. When was the last time you actually ran through the NPE?
Okay, so total honesty, I did it like 4 hours ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I was like I've been talking with more and more new bro corps, and I was like, I need to get a better understanding of what they're experiencing. That's why I can tell you, like, oh, if I I get my civilian Aristero and like go in and I'm, with this fleet that's trying to run away from being sabotaged and stuff. And so
So were you excited when you saw the Astero? And then,
I
kind of
was
heartbroken when it got blown up?
how about thrilled that it was actually had guns on it? I can't tell you the last time I saw an Astero with a weapon system in the high slots. It's always drones. But yeah, that and plus an unbonus multi-spec ECM1.
Yeah,
The very, very powerful ECM1, I jammed out a Macarial. So I felt very powerful then.
I know, right? Yeah, I was like, oh, cool, they're going to give New Bros this, Astero Corvette like, and then it got blown up and like, aw.
Dang it. Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations, you now have your first kill mail.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised because I expected it to last a little bit longer, but you basically learn how to like shoot guns, orbit, and stuff. I'll tell you one thing that I thought was weird about the NPE. So like obviously, a lot of us interact not with the selected item menu, but like right-clicking in space, right-clicking on the overview, and I couldn't like right-click until after
Mm.
we got through like the first portion. I thought that was weird. I was like, why is it always forcing me to go to the selected item menu? Like I
It's
should be able to just right click in space and kind of learn the contextual menu, right? But
Yeah,
that would be
unfortunately,
my improvement.
when we go do the MPE, we know what the different, I guess, hacks are, but a new player wouldn't. They're just going to do what it tells them to do.
Right.
So,
But
yeah,
we're making it more difficult, I feel like,
a
by
little,
doing
a little bit, yeah.
yeah.
They can't really explore, but anyways, that's a topic for another
Yeah,
day.
where was the scanning tutorial? I'm in an Astero. I should be able to learn how to scan, right? Does that exist anywhere?
What?
Maybe it's in the
Yeah.
help guide or something?
No, once you get to the career missions, there is an exploration. There's a 5 mission arc, and it if yeah, we'll just skip on. If CCP
Okay,
is
sorry.
if CCP is watching, they know exactly what I'm talking about here.
Okay, all right. Fingers crossed.
So with Everkeys, community, and just like wormholes, community is a really huge thing for us. We're public. We don't have an in-game presence, and this is the only way that we can really survive is by sticking together and being a Discord community.
Mhm.
What is your definition of a community in Eve?
Yeah, I like this question. It's cool because in wormhole space, everything operates like a little bit different because you never know where your connections are going to be, um, or who's going to be behind the next wormhole, and or who's secretly keeping eyes on you, right? So, like, one of the things that I would use to really drill down in that is communities, the people you want to rep, right? It's people in your corp, people in your alliance, people you want to keep alive. But the community is also the people you want to shoot. It's
Yep.
also the people that decloak on you, and you're like, ah, I'm gonna, Uno reverse trap card you, right? And it's like, here come my, 5 decloaking. We'll just say Asteros because it's such an underrated ship, right? And that's gonna kill this Kovops that's tackling me or whatever. It's like, it's a very happy middle ground of what I like to refer to, and I think other people do too, as frenemies. One day
Yeah,
you roll into somebody and it's like, all right, let's work together to like achieve this goal that we wouldn't be able to do by ourselves, but we can together. And then the next day you're like, oh, it's just us. Let's fight each other, right? And it's one big happy ball of pew.
that's exactly like it is in the NPSI community as well. Today we may
Yeah,
be
it's
working
fun.
together to bring down that one oracle or hell or whatever. Tomorrow we're gonna just melt each other's faces off.
The free for all, the four-way free for all, or whatever it was
Yep.
that happened last month. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next question is, what is your stance on toxicity in the Eve community? And I want to be clear to everyone that's listening: is toxicity is not in-game conflict. Eve is built on conflict. So the act of ganking or PvP, the hard knock life of Eve, that is not toxic. We, at least in Eve Rookies, define toxicity as that racism, discrimination, the homophobia, transphobia. Basically, it's all the stuff that just shouldn't be in your vocabulary or even your mind in 2024. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
what is your stance on it, and do you think it's a problem in Eve?
So let's get this out of the way right away. There's no place for toxicity in our community, right? Like that, there's just not. Especially as how you've defined it. Some people may be like, "Oh, it's toxic. You keep shooting like that one person as they undock from Jita." Like, okay, yeah, that's harassment for sure, but it's not nearly the toxicity that
Yeah,
you've described. There's a very clear line there, right? Um, but I will say that I think in the folks that I've interacted with, vast majority of people have been very cordial. They're outgoing. They're fun to work with. If they're enemies, they keep everything in game above board. Very rarely do I come across anyone who's being toxic again in like the way that you've described.
right.
Um, I'm not blind to the fact. I'm certain that it exists.
Mm,
You certainly see like posts on Reddit, right, where it's like, how did this name get approved, right? And then if we're lucky, a GM has acted on it quickly enough to be able to kind of shut it down. But uh, I wouldn't say it's a prevailing problem. I would say that there are certainly bad eggs, but overwhelmingly the community is a good one.
okay, so in my recent experience, and in the experience of a lot of Eve Rookie members, there are certain areas of Eve that are spicy. If you encounter
Okay.
it, what do you think you'll do?
I've always found the best way to get a quick resolution is to take a screenshot if it's something that's said, right? And open a ticket, send it to a GM. If you don't get a quick response, uh, go into the rookie help channel. There's almost always like a GM or two in there. Find them, open a convo with them, or at them in the chat. Be like, hey, I just came across this person. They were acting in this way. I mean, it violates the EULA, right? It violates the terms of service. So
100%.
it's not like it's going to be hard to prove it, right? Be like, hey, this person violated XYZ. Cool. Close and shut case. They're banned, right? They get dealt with in a quick way. That's what I would encourage anyone coming across those types of people. Talk to your GMs. They're great. We have some really, really good GMs.
Yeah, we
Probably some of
do.
the best in like MMOs, honestly. Um, and so if you have a problem, chat with them. They're very approachable. They're very easy to work with. And the end of the day, they want to keep the community like they want to keep the game one that we're coming back to. It's harder to do if we have bad actors. So let's
Yeah,
get rid of them.
100%. So, this next bit of questions. Since you have talked to Mark Resurrectus, it may be easier for you than other people, but let's pretend that you made it onto the CSM19. You go into your very first meeting, and the plans for the next expansion are revealed to you. Not one thing that you're an expert in or that you campaigned for is on the docket. What do you plan on doing?
Outside of crying for on the inside for maybe a few seconds, I think the best thing that you can do as a CSM representative, if like your area of space or your knowledge base is not something that's being covered, is to immediately start engaging. right? Start engaging with people that are knowledgeable about this space. Learn about what they like, learn about what they don't like, learn about things that would push them away from the space or things that maybe would bring them closer towards it. You need to make sure that you just keep an open mind, engage with your experts, and that way whenever those items come up and they come up for discussion, you can say, "Oh, it's interesting you want to talk about X, Y, and Z. I've spoken with a few groups, and one of the things that they really like about their space is one of the things you're considering getting away, taking away from them. Have you thought about ways to mitigate this issue?" And just make sure that when they're crafting solutions, when they're building expansions, you can say, "Hey, um, you might want to consider this." And I know I'm not an expert, but I made sure to surround myself with the people who were and talk with them about it.
Okay. Then the next question is, if you play Eve long enough, your gameplay will be changed. Things will be axed, and the things that your community love are going to go away. What will you do as CSM if you find out that an integral part of your community's gameplay is set to be drastically changed, but it's better overall for the game? Is that
That's such a good question. So been through this a few times before. As someone who lives in wormhole space, we've experienced a few things. Like, remember when they fixed the 500 MN hick issue with bubbles and being able to lurch hicks? So they made some mass adjustments, right? And just how the way the bubble worked. So they kind of forgot that it's critical to be able to use Hicks and the original mass reduction mechanic that we had to like roll holes or stuff like that. And so they quick patched in a module that allowed us to do it. It's like, okay, it's thank you. Um, if I was to find out that an integral part of gameplay was getting nerfed, I think I would want to make sure that I understood the direction that CCP is looking to go. If it's truly better for the game, then the direction that they want to go should be very apparent. I think it would be my job to make sure that they understand the consequences of the change. But like, if it's better, then and at the end of the day, if it's better, it's going to bring more people into the space.
yep?
It's going to allow us to engage with allow us to engage in PvP, PvE, industry, all the facets of Eve that people find interesting. It'll allow us to engage in, and there will be more of us out there. Um, so it's tough, but end of the day, you got to adapt, right? Like, all right, I've done my piece, boys. I've explained to them all the things. This got
Yep.
through. Time to adapt.
Yep. It is a very stressful part of being a CSM. I can tell you that.
Oh yeah, well, CCP came out with that song HTFU, right? The permaban song. It's just if anyone just really were to get upset about it, just be like send them the link to that video. Be like, hey man, it's part of the culture. You just gotta adapt.
100%. So, if a community whose gameplay is outside of your expertise approaches you for help, do you think you're going to help them?
Oh yeah, I mean that's your job, right? Like if I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to be a CSM representative, then you have to make yourself available.
Yep.
If it's something that I don't understand or is outside my expertise, um, first and foremost, I want to make sure that they understand that they can approach me. You like reach out, Discord. I even check my emails from time to time, so you can send those too. But set up some time to talk with me and help me understand. If it's not something that I know, help me understand. And I bet you, if we're lucky enough to get a well-rounded CSM, CSM members that operate in all areas of space, doing all types of things, if I don't get it, then I'd be sure to include somebody else who would.
Yep.
Like, hey, I don't know that part of space, but you know who does? This person who's also on the CSM. Let's bring them in and have this conversation. Now, I would certainly want to still be included because I think every opportunity you engage with someone that's outside of that, like has knowledge outside of your expertise, it's an opportunity to learn, and that's good. But really, I just want to make sure that they feel heard and they know that every member on the CSM is approachable and willing to hear their problems.
That's really one of the biggest thing I found as CSM is it was very interesting some of the communities that have come to me because they figure out that, or they think that I'm the most approachable, CSM out of all of them. So yeah, that's exactly the strategy I employed. Is I would go to the rest of the CSM and was like, "Can you give me advice here, or can you talk to this person?" And usually it's not that big of a deal.
That's good. That's great to hear. That's very reassuring.
So the last question in this section, and this is particularly relevant for those of you who, I'm going to say the word, who were Skyhook Raiders and are
Oh no,
and are very upset that your gameplay has been totally disrupted. Players sometimes expect CSM members to fix issues or demand changes from CCP. Have you given any thought to how you're going to balance the limitations placed on you as a CSM, such as you're an advisor and you give feedback, you're not an employee, while making sure that the players feel heard?
Yeah, that's a that's another great question. So, uh, in the vast majority of times, whenever a change is pushed that's either not well received or changes a core style of gameplay, you're always going to get the pushback, right? Like, I can't believe they made Skyhook raiding basically like a 5-minute window now because everyone's going to raid their stuff as soon as it comes out of invul, and you hear all of that. CCP very rarely, and from my understanding, obviously I haven't been in the room, so I can't speak to this with 100% certainty, but it seems like they seem like the type of group that respond better to changes when they have data to act on. If this change obviously was more of what I'll call like a knee-jerk reaction, um, but it wasn't like a what I would consider to be a immediate reaction. Um, they saw the issue, and I think they overcorrected personally. At the end of the day, if people start busting out the pitchforks and the torches and whatnot, um, I think it's very important that you take those complaints, but behind it you have to understand. You have to understand why it's a problem. You
Yep.
can't just be like, you took this away and it's bad because I liked it. Well, that's not exactly how the game works. That's not how game design works. If we liked everything, then like where's the challenge? Where's the opportunity to grow and try new things? You have to understand
So,
why.
yeah.
And then it's not our job to come up with solutions. We can certainly suggest them, but we're not game designers. We're advisors, just like you said. So it's important for us to take that information and just understand why it's a problem and then present that to CCP. They may not see it that way, they may, but as long as you advise and do your job of relaying that information, especially the reason why, then you've done your job as a CSM.
Yep. I think you've got it.
Thanks.
So now I had asked my community for a few questions that is important to them. And the first one is, what is your stance on multi-boxing? Now, I know you're a wormholer, and I know boxing is important. This is coming from Eve Rookies puts people first. So in every single one of our fleets, if there is a real human butt to put in a seat, we put it there. We will use boxes to stand up fleets and get things done that needs to be done, but always if there's a human being to put in that position, we will.
Yeah.
We have people who have been having problems with, say, home fronts, for example, where there's a group of actual 5 players that can't get a site because there's boxers in every single site.
Mm.
So this is kind of where the war of the multi-boxers have come, and the community of 3000 is like split down the middle. So what is your stance on it?
Well, I mean, yeah, like you. First off, yes, I'm multi-box. It's a kind of I feel like Eve was built in a way that really promotes multi-boxing. At the end of the day, CCP gets rewarded by having more multi-boxers because it's more paid accounts, right? And so it's tough to balance. I think there's a healthy in between, but I don't really know how you would balance that. A lot of the folks that I've talked with about um, about multi-boxing specifically always call out drone assist. Is that something that y'all have come across in
Yep.
serious shape? Yeah.
Oh.
What are your thoughts on drone assist?
So I'm part of the incursion community, and we do use it.
Hmm.
However, I know that the current bunch of CSM19 candidates are all pretty gun ho to try to get rid of it, and I can completely understand. So
If
this is kind of where the question is, something within your gameplay gets torched, but it's better for the game. Is that okay? And this is one of those situations where I've really kind of looked inwardly. Do we use drone assists? With the new bros, we do, but
Mhm.
I guess on the big boy incursions, the headquarters, nobody's even dropping drones anymore because if you don't drop them, you can't lose them. So is drone assist really? We're bad drone parents. Uh, is it really that big of a deal if the rest of the community wants to get rid of it? So yeah, I think it's okay if that's going to help with the bodying problem and the multi-boxing problem.
My gut, having absolutely no data and only anecdotal experience, my gut says getting rid of drone assist would be a net positive, but I would definitely want to engage more in understanding what y'all use it for to see if maybe there's a way that it can be balanced so that it's not something that's easily like multi-boxable, but also can be used in situations like like y'all do for
Yeah.
incursions.
Yep. So this leads me into the next question. What do you think is the most pressing issue in Eve?
In terms, I think we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but like,
That was a new player. This is overarching all of Eve.
well, so I mean, I still think it's that. I think it's keeping people. I think it's new player retention. I think it's finding ways, like you mentioned before, like getting people engaged, that they're not just out there playing solo for 6 months and then you never see them again. It's like our space does better when more people are logged in, more people are going out, more people are undocking, and they're doing things. You know, they're not just ship spinning, they're not just sitting on tether. Like they're going out and they're doing stuff, or they're exploring, or they're trying new things. I think that's honestly the biggest problem because I want to see a resurgence of player growth, and I want to
Yep.
see that number turn in from new player growth into player retention. So hopefully it's not too much of a cop out answer, but I really do think that if we're going to continue to enjoy this game that we all are here for and we love, then we need to share that with more people and we need to keep
Yep.
them around.
Yeah. New players are our lifeblood.
Yeah,
Without them, we wouldn't have very much of a game. Get pretty
exactly. Like it'll eventually just die out.
Yep. So last question, and then we'll open it up to anybody who has questions for you. What other candidates out of, geez, I think CCP Swift said that we have something like 56, 57 now. What other
Oh
candidate?
wow.
Yeah, there's 7 incumbents, and then the rest are new. So out of all the candidates, who would you like to see elected alongside you?
Ooh. All right, so full disclosure, I like to consider myself an informed voter when I vote. I know people are still putting their like forum posts together and stuff, so I haven't done that yet. There's just too much. Would you say 57? I
Something
haven't
like
had the
that.
time to
Yeah.
read through them all. Um, but I will say one of the people that and I believe they're an incumbent. Yeah, they are an incumbent. Mike, Mike
Yes.
Azaria.
Yes.
I always found him to be a good representative. He's got great outreach, good communication. He does like the Magic School Bus or Magic Battle Bus, whatever it's called now.
Magic
Like,
School Bus yet?
yeah, I think that's cool. So if I had to pick one right now, it'd be Mike. But I don't know who else I'd pick. I have to set aside the time and actually like read through and hopefully have a chance to chat with them as well.
Fair enough. You better do your homework because that's something that CCP Swift loves asking on the CS or the CCP interviews.
Well, I'll try and set up some time then to read because we're supposed to be doing those this weekend. So I got a lot of reading ahead of me.
But I totally agree with Mike. I would absolutely love to serve on the CSM with him again. There was a few times that we would just gang up on the devs and you know kick butt and get things done. And he tells the best dad jokes. So if you ever get stuck in the airport with him, I guarantee that you'll be entertained.
Awesome. Okay, good to know. Something to look forward to if this happens.
Indeed. Okay, so I would like to open this up to anybody that happens to have a question, either here in chat or on Twitch. Anybody? Give Twitch a few minutes to actually type. You have a few fans in there.
Uh, yeah,
Uh,
we're a close community, the wormhole space folks.
Um, Question from our side is when you're campaigning and you get onto the CSM, are you intending to look at anything from an industrial perspective on the wormhole community, or is it just mainly around quality of life and PvP, etc.?
Sure. So I love that question. And what's your name? I'm sorry. I don't know voices
Primaries.
yet. Okay, awesome. Um, so I think there's a lot of room for growth in industry, but it's certainly not something that I would consider myself an expert in. It's not something that I would say is a tenet of my candidacy. That being said, I can share with you some of the ideas that have been presented to me as opportunities to bring more opportunities for industry and whatnot within wormhole space. So one of the cool ones that I heard that did you happen to be in wormhole space? I think it was like 3 years ago ish.
No, I'm actually quite still fairly new to the game. I joined about 10 months ago.
Oh, okay, so this is this may be news to you then, but one of the things that's kind of cool about what we used to have in wormhole space were like ore sites that actually offered ore that you can only find, so you used to only be able to find in nullsec. Now you can find it in highsec. That offered like some really good opportunities to make ISK, but also use it for production. Spod was like the big one, right? And it's probably still the big one in terms of being able to produce trit. But some of the cool ideas that I've heard is to either bring some of those old ore sites back. They're so infrequently experienced within the wormholes within like the wormhole space environment that it's not something that I would consider to be game breaking. Um, Another idea that's been shared with me is uh, instead of having ice belts exclusively in shattered wormholes, to allow those to be a rotating anom that go through all classes of space, so people can go to like the ice debris field and be able to extract ice from those. Another big one that I've heard is to kind of do tier aside, if you will, to the different classes of wormholes. 5 and 6 space is always going to be like your best ratting space, so maybe it's your worst industry space. Maybe you buff C1s to C3s to have better moons or better ore noms, things like that. And then 4s to 6s get the better crabbing space. Now, there's something to be said entirely separate of the way that sites operate in C4 space. That's another animal in itself. But those are just some of the ideas that I've heard so far. And if CCP is interested in making adjustments to how industry works in general, I would certainly be happy to present those ideas to them.
Yeah, that pretty much goes in line with how we feel at the moment. Is we being wormholers, we're smaller than the nullsec megacorps, but we would like to be in a position where we can produce our own battleships, etc., without having to, import minerals or whatever we need from nullsec to do it. We might not be able to produce on the same kind of scale, but we'd like to at least be independent from the megacorps.
Yeah, that's CCP would probably have something to say about that. I think they like the fact that other areas of space have to interact with one another, whether it's through the market or actually traveling there to make it happen. But I guess my counterpoint to that potential challenge would be, well, they are interacting with other parts of space. They're going from a C1 to a C6 to a C4. They're visiting these different classes of wormholes that are inhabited by different groups of people, and pulling the resources that way. I
Yeah,
do agree with you. I think it would be cool to be able to independently produce things, but I'm not sure if CCP is fully on board with that direction yet. But a good point to bring up.
yeah. Because the only way around it was because if they can give our oxygen to Nelsec, they can give the Noxium back to us as well.
There you
But
go.
yeah,
Little trade agreement.
that's pretty much where we are. But yeah,
Fair.
So, next question I have from Twitch chat from Glow Hollow. Are you vouching for either Edom or the Triglavians?
So fun fact about me, I have alts that are in Rokupel, which are a great group of mid-tier dads that live out of Turner, and they used to live in Pochven, and so I got an opportunity to experience the Pochven content for a while. If I had to pick, I'm probably team Triglavian because laser go burr. Um, and they unfortunately Edencom just got the shaft, man. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like Edencom's just not nearly as cool as laser go burr. So I'm probably team Triglav. Yeah.
And how do you like the Pochven Triglavian content?
Back before it got heavily multi-boxed. We're back to multi-boxing.
Right?
Back before it was like Marauders Online, yeah, it was fun. You'd hop in, you'd have to engage with like these fleets that, we would fly bar guests, we'd have to engage with these other comps. Sometimes they were in like hacks, or they would be in a mirror comp, they'd be in bar guests too, and you'd be flying around the grid shooting each other, trying to find out who the NPC's shooting, shoot that guy, like he's gonna be under a lot of pressure. It was fun. It was cool. But just look at the MER. Look at the amount of ISK coming out of that
Oh,
place.
man, I'll tell you.
It's obviously a very lucrative place to be. Not a place that I go to anymore to really spend any time, just because it's not as engaging as it once
Yeah.
was.
Same here. Out of all the content that Eat Rookies doesn't do is we don't do Pochven content. We do have some Triglavian hunters, but that's all high sec stuff. Going to the low victory systems or minor victory systems. And we don't do
Gotcha.
faction warfare, not because it's hard like Pochven is. Pochven is just not fun to take a bunch of new bros into, because they're going to get trampled.
Yeah,
100%
they're
of the
very
time.
ruthless. Those rats.
Well, it's not just the rats; it's the locals as well. They'll just run you out if they think you're stealing their ISK. But
Yeah.
faction warfare we just haven't gotten into because I'm right now the only like leader interested, and I just don't have time. So
Yeah.
okay, so oh yeah, apparently we did do one or two deep space mining fleets in Pochven, but that was like probably 2 years ago. I'm guessing, if I remember right. Somebody
That's
remind me.
right. They came out with like the specific ore that only exists
Yeah.
in Botchman. Yeah, it's the those looked cool, but what was your experience with those? Was it like profitable at all, or?
I think it was just a fun foray into Pochven, trying it out and finding out that it's not a place that we want to bring new players.
Fair enough. Well, they say when you learn quick, fail fast, and adjust.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were saying that at the time there was Eventor, and the fleet was actually pretty
Okay.
profitable.
Okay. I feel like I thought that ore persisted, as in like it's still there today, but I will be honest with you, I never went to the mining sites. It was always observatory flashpoints and everything in between. I never did the World Arc. The World Arc site, that looked kind of cool. Apparently, you can get like Zernitra stuff through that, or like officer mods. But
Yeah,
I never did it because I didn't want the standings hit.
we partner with Hateless Gaming, and that's who runs the Triglavian hunting fleets. And they decided that they were going to try to do the World Arc, and that failed pretty spectacularly because the locals came and crushed them the second they got started.
Ah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So they,
Hateless. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, they didn't even get started. So
That's a bummer. I do. Hateless is great.
yeah,
I was on an NPSI fleet about a month ago that was sponsored by him, and we had a
yeah,
like little fight out in
yeah.
frat space.
Of course, it's his community because he unfortunately passed a year ago now,
Yeah,
year and a half. But yeah, his
yeah,
community lives on, and they're really great. We're glad to have them.
yeah. It's great that it's still kicking.
Yeah,
Honestly, we love that.
100%.
My intention, like as a representative, is to make sure that I just stay connected with the community. I will tell you right now, because Mark was a personal friend of mine. Like I never attended any of the town halls or anything like that.
Right.
Like our hangouts were our town halls, right? So like, I just didn't go to them. But I intend to keep that um, tradition going. What I'd like to do, in an effort to keep that line of communication open, is set up like a Discord server where wormhole groups can send 1 to 2 representatives from their group, and we can have like a monthly meeting where we just stay
Mm.
connected on the issues that are affecting wormholers. Like, what's changed that you don't like? What did you think about the most recent change? I'm sure if I'd held that meeting tomorrow, I would hear nothing but skyhook comments. But just staying connected with them. Yeah, that's the whole point about like being approachable and making sure that their voice is heard. I think that's the big thing. Um, and then the second our question was,
How annoying is it
how,
that everything that CCP does is for or faction warfare or nullsec?
okay, so I am gonna say it's nice that they finally did something to faction warfare. We talk about like, oh, they haven't done anything to wormhole space in so long, right? But they didn't touch faction warfare for like 7 years. I don't even know how long it was. It took forever, right? Like that's
I
so.
started in 2020 and nothing had been done with faction warfare up until they did their release. So
I remember when I spun up a faction warfare alt, thinking that it would be like this cool new part of space, and I got bored of it in like the first like 2 hours. Like it just wasn't engaging. It seems much cooler now, but I mean, CCP is always going to focus. Shouldn't say always, but it seems like CCP is going to focus where the majority of their player base resides.
yep.
So it's not surprising, but I think that making sure any changes that get suggested to that space go through the lens of a wormholer can be beneficial to make sure that like the wormhole side of things doesn't get uh, collaterally damaged. I think that's the best part to keep an eye out for.
And
But it is annoying.
he has one last question. What would you bring or bring back to wormhole space?
Ooh, what would I bring back or bring? Okay, you know what? I'm gonna cheat and I'm gonna give 2 answers. One, quality of life improvement, because everyone has been asking for this. I would bring an increased bookmark folder count limit so that it is no longer just 500. Maybe it gets bumped up to 1,000, maybe a little more, maybe 2,000. Why stop at 1,000? So I would first and foremost do that for quality of life. And for something fun, obviously gas huffing drones, but not like the regular mining drones. I actually posted in my forum post earlier today that if we were going to do gas huffing drones, that they technically had to be sentry drones, so that they didn't go to like 200K away from the ship to orbit the cloud to technically huff it, and they could just do it right on the ship at 0.
That'd actually be kind of
Oh,
cool.
yeah, well, I feel like that'd be kind of cool. That's my fun answer for the day, and apparently a lot of people want that too. So things I wouldn't know unless I had actually had those meetings. So
Well, if you get on the CSM19, make sure to fight for those bookmarks, because I think that was something that was brought up during our quality of life meeting. So we need to keep fighting for it.